What if I told you that the woman you're about to meet went from being society's invisible victim to becoming the architect of the most satisfying revenge story you'll ever hear? Her name was Soraya, and this is the story of how she transformed from a broken-hearted wife into a woman who reclaimed everything that was stolen from her. But first, let me paint you a picture of where it all began. Soraya was what society cruelly called plus-sized, but what I call beautifully genuine. She carried extra weight on her body, but her heart was pure gold. At 32, she had given up on love. She spent her days working at a small accounting firm, managing other people's money while barely having enough for herself. But Soraya had something most people didn't know about. She had inherited a substantial sum from her late grandfather, a secret nest egg that she kept hidden from the world. Then came Marcus, tall, dark, handsome, and charming in all the ways that made Soraya's heart skip beats. He appeared in her life like a fairy tale prince. Flowers every week, romantic dinners, sweet text messages that made her blush for the first time in her life. Someone saw her as beautiful. Someone wanted to marry her. Marcus proposed after just 3 months of dating, was so overwhelmed with joy that she said yes without a second thought. She finally felt worthy of love. But what Soraya didn't know was that Marcus had done his homework. He knew exactly how much money she had inherited. He knew about her vulnerabilities, her desperate need to be loved, and he was about to execute the most calculated betrayal you can imagine. The wedding was small and intimate. Soraya felt like the luckiest woman alive, but the honeymoon phase lasted exactly 6 weeks. Marcus suddenly announced he had received a scholarship to study business in Germany, a 2-year program that would set up their future. He claimed that Soraya supported his dreams, even though it meant separation. What she didn't expect was being left with his family. Marcus moved her into his childhood home with his parents and his senile grandmother, the house that would become her prison for the next 7 years. Within weeks of Marcus leaving, Soraya realized her new reality. She wasn't a daughter-in-law, was free labor. Every morning, she woke up at 5 a.m. to prepare breakfast for the entire household. She cleaned every room, scrubbed every floor, did every load of laundry. But the worst part was caring for Marcus's grandmother. Lena had severe dementia and required round-the-clock attention, feeding her, bathing her, changing her clothes. The old woman would often become violent, scratching and hitting Soraya, calling her horrible names, forgetting who she was every few minutes. Marcus's parents treated Soraya like an unpaid servant. They never offered to help, never showed gratitude. When Soraya tried to call Marcus to complain, the conversations were always brief. He was busy with studies, busy with work, busy with everything except his wife. 1 year became 2, became 5, became 7. Soraya aged rapidly under the stress. Her hair started graying, her back ached from constant cleaning, her spirit was slowly dying. She had no friends, no social life, no identity outside of being the family caretaker. The money she had inherited was slowly being drained. Marcus would call asking for funds for his education, for his living expenses, and Soraya, being the loving wife she was, would send whatever he needed. She trusted him completely. Then came the day that changed everything. Zora was scrolling through social media, something she rarely had time for, when she saw a tagged photo that made her blood run cold. There was Marcus at what looked like a company party, but he wasn't alone. His arm was wrapped around a stunning blonde woman. The caption read, "Marcus and his beautiful girlfriend Sarah, celebrating their second anniversary." Stared at the screen in disbelief. She scrolled through more photos. Marcus and Sarah at restaurants, Marcus and Sarah on vacation, Marcus and Sarah looking very much like a couple in love. The devastating truth hit her like a physical blow. While she had been slaving away, caring for his family, while she had been sending him her inheritance money, while she had been faithfully waiting for 7 years, Marcus had been living a completely different life with another woman. Soraya didn't cry, she didn't scream, she didn't break down. Instead, something cold and calculating awakened inside her. This is where our story takes a turn that will give you chills, because what happened next proves that the quiet ones, the overlooked ones, the underestimated ones, are often the most dangerous when they finally decide to fight back. That night, Soraya packed a single suitcase. She left a note for Marcus's parents, saying she had a family emergency, and she disappeared. No forwarding address, no phone calls, no explanations. She simply vanished like smoke. Soraya drove to a city 3 states away, where nobody knew her story. She rented a small apartment under her maiden name. Then she began the most dramatic transformation you can imagine. First, she consulted with the best plastic surgeons money could buy, gastric bypass surgery, to lose the weight that had defined her for so long, to refine her nose-breast augmentation, to enhance her figure dental work, to perfect her smile over the course of 18 months. Soraya underwent a complete physical metamorphosis, but the changes weren't just external. She hired personal trainers, nutritionists, style consultants. She learned how to walk with confidence, how to speak with authority. She studied business and investment strategies. She was creating a new version of herself, a version that would be completely unrecognizable. When Soraya looked in the mirror after 2 years of transformation, she barely recognized herself. The overweight, overlooked woman was gone. In her place stood a stunning, confident, successful businesswoman. She had lost over 100 pounds. Her skin was glowing. Her hair was professionally styled. She looked like she belonged on magazine covers, but more importantly, she felt powerful. She changed her name legally to Sarah Winchester. Irony wasn't lost on her that she chose the same name as Marcus's girlfriend. Sarah didn't just transform her appearance, she transformed her entire life. Using her business knowledge and what remained of her inheritance, she started investing real estate, stocks, cryptocurrency. Every investment was calculated. Every move was strategic. With 3 years, Sarah had not only recovered her lost money, she had tripled it. She was now genuinely wealthy, not just inherited wealth, but earned wealthy. Kind of wealth that commands respect. Sarah's next step was reconnaissance. She hired a private investigator to track down Marcus and his girlfriend. What she discovered was even more satisfying than she hoped. Marcus had never actually completed his education in Germany. He had dropped out after the first year. He had been living off Soraya's money while pretending to study. He and his girlfriend Sarah were struggling financially. They were living in a tiny apartment, drowning in debt. Marcus had been lying about having a successful career. He was working dead-end jobs, barely making ends meet. The private investigator also discovered something else. Marcus had been planning to divorce Soraya and claim half of her inheritance. He had been consulting with lawyers, building a case, but since Soraya had disappeared, he couldn't proceed with his plan. Now, here's where Sarah's revenge becomes absolutely masterful, because she didn't just want to expose Marcus, she wanted to systematically destroy everything he had built, his lies, his relationships, his finances, and she wanted him to know exactly who was doing it. Sarah's first move was to return to her hometown, but not as the broken woman who had left. She returned as a successful, mysterious businesswoman. She bought the most expensive house in the neighborhood, a mansion that overlooked the modest home where Marcus's family still lived. She drove luxury cars, wore designer clothes. Everyone in town was talking about the beautiful, wealthy woman who had moved into the big house. One day, Sarah decided to pay a visit to Marcus's parents. She knocked on the door with a confident smile. When Marcus's mother answered, she didn't recognize the woman standing before her. Sarah introduced herself as a successful businesswoman interested in investing in local properties. She chatted politely, asking about the neighborhood. During the conversation, she casually mentioned that she was looking for reliable household help, someone experienced in elderly care. Marcus's mother immediately recommended herself. Desperate for income after losing Soraya's financial support, Sarah hired Marcus's parents to work for her. The same people who had treated her like a servant were now her employees. The irony was poetic. Every day they cleaned her mansion, cooked her meals, tended her garden, and every day Sarah watched them work, knowing they had no idea who she really was. She paid them well, but she made sure they knew their place. She was the boss. Now, meanwhile, Sarah had been monitoring Marcus's social media activity. She knew he was planning to return home soon. His relationship with his girlfriend was falling apart. They were fighting about money. Sarah decided it was time to make her next move. She created a fake social media profile as a wealthy entrepreneur. She began liking Marcus's posts, commenting on his photos, building a digital relationship. Marcus took the bait immediately. Here was a successful, beautiful woman showing interest in him. He started private messaging her. Sarah played her role perfectly. She was everything Marcus thought he wanted: wealthy, successful, interested in meeting him. She suggested they meet when he returned home. Marcus was so excited about this new prospect that he broke up with his girlfriend. He was already planning his next financial scheme. Sarah arranged to meet Marcus at the most expensive restaurant in town. She arrived early and waited. When Marcus walked into that restaurant, he was looking for a woman named Sarah Winters. What he found was a stunning woman who looked vaguely familiar, but he couldn't place where he might have seen her before. Sarah smiled warmly as he approached. She had been waiting 7 years for this moment. "Hello, Marcus," she said, standing up to greet him. "You look exactly the same." Marcus was confused by her comment, but charmed by her beauty. They sat down and began talking. Sarah was everything he hoped she would be and successful attracted to him. As the evening progressed, Marcus became more and more convinced he had hit the jackpot halfway through dinner. Sarah looked directly into Marcus's eyes. "Tell me, Marcus," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Do you believe in karma?" Marcus laughed nervously, unsure where the conversation was heading. "I believe we make our own luck," he replied. "Interesting philosophy," Sarah said, "because I believe that every action has consequences. Every betrayal eventually comes back to haunt you." Sarah reached into her purse and pulled out a thick manila envelope. She placed it on the table between them. "What's that?" Marcus asked. "Open it," Sarah said. Marcus opened the envelope and his face went white. Inside were photographs of him with his ex-girlfriend, bank statements showing how he had spent Soraya's money, documentation of his lies about his education, evidence of his planned divorce proceedings. "Who are you?" Marcus whispered. Sarah leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Someone you used to know very well, someone you promised to love and honor, someone whose life you destroyed while you were building your ally." The realization hit Marcus like a lightning bolt. "Soraya." He breathed actually, Sarah said, standing up. "My name is Sarah Winters. Now the old Soraya died the day she discovered your betrayal." What rose from her ashes? Marcus stared at her, in complete shock. The overweight, overlooked woman he had married was gone. In her place stood a woman who commanded attention and respect. "Now, let me tell you what's going to happen," Sarah continued. "First, you're going to return every penny you stole from me, with interest calculated over 7 years. Second, you're going to sign these divorce papers, which will give you absolutely nothing. Third, you're going to disappear from this town and never contact me or your family again." Marcus tried to argue, tried to explain, tried to apologize, but Sarah held up her hand. "You had 7 years to be a husband," she said. 7 years to show me respects, 7 years to prove you were worthy of my love. Instead, you chose to steal from me, lie to me, and replace me. Now you get to live with the consequences." Marcus had no choice. Sarah had evidence of his fraud. She had documentation of his lies. She had the power to destroy him completely. He signed the papers with shaking hands. By the end of that evening, Sarah had reclaimed her inheritance plus damages. She had secured her divorce and she had sent Marcus away with nothing but the clothes on his back. But Sarah wasn't finished. Over the next few months, she systematically dismantled every lie Marcus had built. She contacted his ex-girlfriend and showed her evidence of his deception. She reached out to his former employers and exposed his fraudulent qualifications. She made sure that everyone in his professional network knew exactly who he really was. Marcus's reputation was destroyed. No one would hire him. No one would trust him. He was forced to start over in a different city with nothing. As for Marcus's parents, Sarah eventually revealed her true identity to them. The shock on their faces was worth every moment of planning. "You mean all this time?" his mother stammered. "All this time we've been working for Soraya, the woman we treated like a servant." Sarah smiled. "Justice has a way of balancing the scales," she said. "You taught me that actions have consequences. Now you're learning the same lessons." Sarah eventually sold her mansion and moved to a new city. She started a consulting business, helping other women who had been financially abused. She used her experience and her wealth to empower others, but she never forgot the lessons she learned. And never again would she allow someone to take advantage of her kindness. Never again would she ignore the red flags. Never again would she be anyone's victim. A woman who had once been invisible had become unstoppable. The woman who had once been overlooked had become unforgettable. Sarah Winters had turned her greatest betrayal into her greatest victory. And sometimes late at night, when she looked in the mirror, she would smile at the woman looking back at her. Woman who had learned that the best revenge isn't getting even, it's becoming so successful, so powerful, so fulfilled, that the person who hurt you becomes irrelevant. This is the story of Soraya, who became Soraya, woman who proved that transformation isn't just about changing your appearance, it's about changing your entire life. It's about taking back your power, and it's about never, ever letting anyone underestimate you again, because the quiet ones, the overlooked ones, the underestimated ones were often the most dangerous. When we finally decide to fight back, remember, Sarah would tell other women, you are not defined by how others treat you. You are defined by how you choose to rise above it and rise. She did higher than anyone ever thought possible. This has been the ultimate revenge story, the transformation of Soraya into Sarah Winters, a woman who took back everything that was stolen from her and built an empire from the ashes of her broken heart. Thanks for watching. What do you think about what happened to Soraya? Please write in the comments, like and subscribe for more women's stories.